Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into James Clear's Atomic Habits. And this book, it starts not with some abstract theory, but with a truly terrifying real-life story.
So this is how author James Clear kicks off his story, not with a productivity hack, but with a single moment that changed his life forever. A classmate was swinging a bat, it slipped out of his hands, and it flew directly into Clear's face.
And in just a fraction of a second, this freak accident resulted in absolutely catastrophic injuries. I mean, the impact was so severe that it literally sent the soft tissue of his brain slamming into the inside of his skull, which caused immediate and really dangerous swelling.
His condition was so critical that by the time he even got to the hospital, his body was already starting to shut down. He had multiple seizures, and things got so bad that doctors had no choice but to place him into a medically induced coma just to keep him alive.
Now, as you can imagine, Clear's recovery was this incredibly slow, painful, and honestly, often humiliating journey. But it was this forced reset, this terrible event that would ultimately lead him to a really profound discovery about what progress and potential actually look like.
You know, his path from a hospital bed to the absolute top of his game wasn't defined by one single heroic moment. Nope. It was a 6-year journey made up of small, almost unnoticeable steps that were just incredibly consistent.
See, he wasn't able to make these huge, grand transformations. So he focused on the only thing he could, making tiny 1% improvements in his daily routines. We're talking about things like good sleep habits and just keeping his room organized. These little things gave him a sense of control and started to rebuild his confidence from the ground up. And this personal experience, it taught him a critical lesson. A lesson he later saw proven on a global stage by one of the most successful teams in modern sports history.
So, okay, let's really dive into this idea of marginal gains and see just how powerful it can be. Because it almost sounds too simple to be true, right?
The core idea here is brilliantly simple. Just focus on making a 1% improvement in everything you do. You're not looking for one massive breakthrough. You're looking for 100 tiny ones. For almost an entire century, British cycling had been, well, mediocre. They'd won a single Olympic gold medal in 100 years. But their new performance director, a guy named Dave Brailsford, he believed that all these tiny 1% improvements would eventually compound into a huge increase in performance.
And what's truly remarkable is just how far they took this concept. They looked for improvements in places that were completely overlooked, totally unexpected, not just the obvious stuff like training. They tested different pillows, they optimized hand-washing techniques, they even looked for dust in the equipment truck.
And the results? They were absolutely staggering. In the decade from 2007 to 2017, the team just dominated the sport, winning championships and gold medals at an unbelievable rate. It was proof that these small, consistent improvements, yeah, they really do compound into remarkable success.
So the big question is, how can we apply this? Well, Clear breaks down the science of how all habits work, the good ones and the bad ones, into a really simple, memorable framework that pretty much anyone can use.
First off, what even is a habit? Well, it's basically a reliable automatic solution your brain creates to solve the recurring problems and stresses you face every single day. You could just call it a mental shortcut.
Every single habit you have, whether it's checking your phone the second you wake up or brewing that morning coffee, follows this exact 4-step feedback loop.
A really easy way to think about this is to split it into 2 parts. The first 2 steps, the cue and the craving, that's the problem phase. It's where you realize something needs to change. And the last 2, the response and the reward, that's the solution phase. That's where you actually take action and satisfy that craving.
But here's where things get really interesting. This is probably the most powerful idea in the whole book, and it goes way deeper than just our behaviors. It's about who we believe we are and who we want to become. So what Clear argues is that the most effective way to change your habits is to stop focusing on what you want to achieve, that's the outcome, and start focusing on who you wish to become, that's your identity. The goal isn't just to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. And this is a crucial point right here. Your habits are the way you embody a particular identity. Every single time you go for a run, you're casting a vote for I am a runner. Every time you sit down and write one page, you cast a vote for I am a writer.
And that brilliantly illustrates why this approach is so powerful for making change that actually lasts. Results can be temporary, right? But when your behavior and your identity are completely aligned, the change sticks for good.
All right, so let's pull all these threads together with our final actionable takeaway. And this brings us right back to James Clear. His 6-year journey from a coma to an All-American perfectly shows this. You don't need to make these massive, earth-shattering changes overnight. You just need to start small, cast a vote for the person you want to be, and then show up again tomorrow. So this explainer really leaves us with a challenge, and that is to look at our own lives and identify that one single, tiny atomic habit that could be the starting point, that first vote for a new identity, and a whole compounding chain of success. So, what's yours?
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the power of tiny changes. We really hope this has given you some food for thought, and we'll see you next time.